depend on intuition. You, being in tune with the Spirit of your Heavenly Father, must feel that it is not your ego but He that will speak through your intuition, reason and voice. I prophesy that when you live and preach my truth, Satan will create great mischief and will rouse a material brother to persecute a spiritual brother, and the unspiritual father will persecute the spiritual child, and the unspiritual children will rise up against their parents who believe my truth and will put them into trouble and be the cause of their great suffering and death. And for manifesting the subtle pure light of Christ intelligence in your actions, you will be disliked by materially minded men who are used to living in the darkness of ignorance. That devotee who does not only overcome the trials in the spiritual path for a little, but who is patient and endures difficulties, temptations and spiritual disappointments of not finding God by prayers or years of meditation, to the end of life, shall find eternal life and be permanently saved from further trials, ordeals and sufferings which go with desireful reincarnating individuals. But when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another, for verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel, till the Son of Man be come. Matthew 10:23. But when they persecute you in one city, take the path of least resistance and divine meekness and fly into another city to preach his message. And you will not finish preaching in the cities of Israel until the words and message delivered through my body, Son of Man, become known all over the earth. Warned not to use divine powers spectacularly. In the above words Jesus instructed his disciples to be led by God and use his power in doing good things only. Jesus warns the disciples not to use divine power in any spectacular way. That is why he says, O ye beloved disciples, when people persecute you for preaching my message in a city, use your common sense and divine meekness to follow the road of least resistance and fly away and preach in another city, for verily by the all-seeing power of spiritual vision, I declare unto you and prophesy that it would take a long time for you to preach my message in the different cities of Israel, and you will be doing so until the Son of Man or my body and its name and its work on earth become fully known. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household? Matthew 10:24-25. In the above words, Jesus emphasizes that the persecution of his disciples would be as great if not greater than he himself would endure, so he says, Beloved ones, you know that even a master-like disciple is not honored like his master, no matter how far the disciple is spiritually advanced, nor is a glorified servant ever regarded as great as his Lord. It is spiritually sufficient before the eyes of God that the disciple becomes equal to the master and the servant becomes powerful like his Lord, but the same is not true before the eyes of the people. Thus, when the materially minded people and the Pharisees have called the master of the house of Christ teachings Beelzebub, prince of devils, then how much more shall they criticize you all who are followers of the truth revealed in Christ consciousness? Fear them not therefore, for there is nothing covered, that shall not be revealed, and hid, that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light, and what ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetops. Matthew 10:26-27. In the above words, Jesus says to his disciples even though they must be meek and humble, following the course of least resistance during their preaching campaigns by flying from one city to another, and even though they would be subject to great criticism, they should fearlessly speak about the hidden truths, even though their exposition and newness might evoke terrible criticism from the wicked and ignorant. For the sake of the truth seekers all hidden truths must be revealed for their benefit. O ye, my beloved ones, Be meek but fear not your critics, for the sake of the true seekers to whose awakened consciousness all truth covered from the gaze of the spiritually ignorant must be uncovered. There is no wisdom that will remain forever covered or hidden from the awakened consciousness and spiritual hunger of the devotee. All things, all truths that the spiritually dark, ignorant people cannot perceive will be perceived by those that are developed in intuitional self-realization. All the truths which I describe to you in the darkness of secrecy and which are hidden from the gaze of all, I ask you to reveal with the light of your self-knowledge, that others who are highly advanced may understandingly perceive them. And all the truths which you hear from me and all the truths that I shall reveal through my Christ intelligence in your intuitional ears within, for public use, you can loudly preach to all without distinction. Speak ye in light. I say unto you again that all the esoteric truths which I vibrate within you in the secrecy of your soul, you must transmit to other souls who are in light or are already spiritually advanced due to their past good karmas, and all the general truths which you hear from my words, you can preach loudly from all platforms wherever you are before the gaze of the public. It must be noted that Jesus asks his disciples to spread two kinds of teaching: one, the hidden higher teachings to the selected spiritually advanced people; second, the general teachings for the public at large. Power of cosmic law. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing? And one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. Matthew 10:28-31. In the above, Jesus is emphasizing that it is a great sin if one, for the fear of man, acts against the cosmic law and thus brings disaster upon himself. Jesus also speaks of the omnipresent, all-knowing power of God which protects and appreciates the work of the devotees who are martyred for the sake of truth. O ye beloved disciples, for the sake of attaining immortality, fear not even if you have to sacrifice the body. The sacrifice of the body will not bring destruction to the soul, but sacrifice of a spiritual principle might bring disaster to the soul and the body as well. Fear not those that can kill your body, but be aware of the cosmic consciousness which evolved your soul and body and which can dissolve them back again within itself due to the action of your own ignorance. When Jesus speaks of God as destroying both body and soul, he meant that God has complete power over the bodies and souls of all creatures, even as kings have power over the bodies of their subjects. Every soul is made in the image of God and as such is indestructible. Persecution may destroy the body of man, but acting against the laws of truth affects the body as well as the soul in the after-death state. The miseries of the body end in death, but the agonies accruing out of an individual's evil actions in one life continue in the soul in the after-death state. Be warned, dear disciples, about the sins against the laws of the soul, more lasting than the errors against the body. Beloved ones, fear not the temporary persecutions of people for a little while on earth, but remember your connection with the Heavenly Father whose consciousness is within you and everywhere, even in the insignificant dying sparrows which are sold for 2 farthings. Omnipresent Father. Remember you have to deal with this ever-watchful, beloved Father throughout eternity. Remember that God is conscious through the present, past and future. He is conscious of every hair on your head, and the cosmic law ever watches every action, good, bad, or indifferent, the countless actions of your life, that it may justly give you the earned result. Therefore, fear not your persecutors and thus desist from preaching the truth, for remember your life and actions as the children of God concern the Father more than the mechanical life of the sparrows who are free from good and bad karma and whose lives, insignificant though they are, are well attended to and taken care of by him. Glossary: the worldly people. Kill the soul, dissolve the indestructible soul. Fear him, stand in awe before him, which is able to destroy both soul and body, who is almighty and, through his cosmic law of cause and effect, can dissolve your soul and body. In hell, self-created misery which burns the inner being as well as the outward health. Without your Father, without the consciousness of the Father who is omnipresent, omniscient. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Matthew 10:32-33. Christ's promise of eternal protection. Whoever shall admit that he is in tune with my consciousness and my teachings before materially minded people and persecutors shall find me also in tune with him, and I shall speak with the Father about taking him in his kingdom of luminous space, even though he may have sins of evil karma. Every soul who will suffer physical death as the consequence for teaching my truth will find his consciousness passes through the Christ intelligence in cosmic vibration to the sphere of cosmic consciousness which exists beyond all vibratory creation. Denial brings punishment. That individual who will deny or desist from exercising his Christ consciousness and Christ living before materially minded people for fear of persecution, will find, when he reaches the blissful Christ intelligence state after death, that consciousness weakening within him, due to his previous denial, and thus will be prevented from remaining in the Christ intelligence or entering into the higher God the Father state or cosmic intelligence which exists beyond Christ consciousness. In the above words, Jesus is giving warning that if any disciple, after contacting the Christ intelligence within him, does not openly share that consciousness with others because of fear of persecution and selfishness, he will lose that consciousness and be unable to advance further. Jesus explains why God love should come before family love. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross, and followeth after me, is not worthy of me. Matthew 10:34-38. O ye beloved disciples, think not that I came to bring a material peace in earthly life. I came not to give a short-lasting material happiness, but to give to the valiant spiritual soul a two-edged sword of wisdom and self-control by which he can slay material pleasure and temptation or any evil family influence which might obstruct his soul from attaining everlasting happiness and spiritual freedom. The eternal truth which I preach and which is manifested within you will variously affect people with various good and bad karmas, so that a good devotee of mine might not agree with his materially minded father, or a daughter saturated in Christ consciousness might not be in tune with her unspiritual mother, and the spiritual daughter-in-law might act against the material wishes of her mother-in-law. And a man enjoying ecstasy in Christ consciousness and meditation might find the members of his own material family acting against him due to their own evil karmas and tendencies. Parents given by God. Since parents are given by God to a devotee, the devotee must not so materially love them that he forgets to love his heavenly Father. The devotee who materially loves his son or daughter more than God and forgets to meditate upon him is not worthy to feel God and know him as the only great cosmic lover. He that is not prepared to hold his Christ peace of meditation at all times during the crucifixion of calmness by restlessness, of self-control by temptation, of divine loyalty by persecution, does not deserve to retain his Christ consciousness from the earth life to eternal life. It must be specially noted that Jesus does not mean that his teachings will not bring peace in family life amidst truth-seeking family members, but he warns family members not to remain steeped in the ignorance of a material life but to take the sword of wisdom to destroy all their earthliness. Jesus goes on to say that if a devotee finds his own family members dissuading him or obstructing him from cultivating God consciousness, he should not yield to them but should go on developing his divine consciousness. Jesus reminds the devotee that he should remember that he has to reap the consequences of his own actions and he should not let his earthly family because of its perversity turn him against his own heavenly Father. Jesus points out that those that overcome all obstacles in order to have self-realization create good karma and tendencies which automatically lead them to the attainment of cosmic consciousness. Glossary: not peace but a sword. Not earthly peace but divine strength and determination. To set a man at variance against his father. To strengthen a spiritual man to resist the influence of an unspiritual father. And he that loveth father and mother more than me. He who loves God's creatures more than God does not deserve to know him. Taketh not his cross. Fights not temptations with self-discipline. Followeth after me. Takes his mind from the plane of sense to the star of Christ consciousness in meditation. Material happiness is not lasting. He that findeth his life shall lose it. And he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And whosoever shall give to drink unto one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward. Matthew 10:39-42. A person in tune with a prophet or a righteous man or the vibration of a disciple's name and acts mercifully will receive prophetic qualities, or righteousness, or divine mercy, respectively, according to the merits of his actions. He that finds material happiness in his life will lose that happiness in death, and he that loses the material happiness of his life in order to find the Christ bliss will find eternal happiness. He who is in tune with Christ-tuned disciples is automatically in tune with Christ consciousness. And he who can receive Christ intelligence in his expanded consciousness is in tune with the cosmic consciousness out of which Christ consciousness emanates. O ye disciples, remember that he who discovers only the material pleasures of his mundane life will lose the divine joys hidden behind it. Also, he that finds the cosmic joy of meditation in life loses the desire to be attached to the pleasures of material life. He who loses the desire for material life in order to find the Christ intelligence within will find the everlasting joys hidden behind material life. That devotee who forgoes the pleasure of the body to feel the ever-new joy felt in ecstasy with Christ consciousness in meditation will find that all material prosperity and pleasures of earthly life will be added unto him. He who forsakes earthly happiness for God happiness will find earthly happiness too. But he who seeks material happiness only will lose it because of its short-lasting nature. In tune with Christ consciousness. Those devotees who are in tune with your consciousness, my beloved disciples, will gradually, through your aid and meditation, contact the Christ consciousness within them. Those who will be able to be one with the Christ consciousness in all vibratory creation by deep meditation, and will discipline their lives under your tutelage, will ultimately be able to be one with cosmic consciousness beyond creation, whose reflection is present in the Christ intelligence within me. He that receives in his intuition the disciple's consciousness will know Christ intelligence. That person who feels Christ intelligence in meditation will ultimately realize God the Father who is reflected as the Son or Christ intelligence. Beloved ones, You must realize that the devotee who has supremely expanded his consciousness by meditation in order to receive Christ consciousness or a prophet's consciousness, will be in tune all vibratory creation, and he that tunes himself with the consciousness of a righteous individual and lives his own life according to the law of cause and effect will be a righteous man. And he that gives even a cup of cold water to the thirsty or a cup of cool wisdom received from many of my disciples to slake the thirst of the little children in the path of God will find good karma and heavenly tendencies that will eventually lift him towards Christ consciousness. Parallelism with Gita. These words of Jesus Christ have a remarkable parallelism with some of the words of the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita says, "Those individuals that worship different deities and different ideals attain what they desire, but those devotees who want me, God, come unto me." Jesus also meant that all good actions are rewarded and followers of different forms of virtue attain their objectives according to their innate desires. But those who are in tune with the prophet or who want to achieve Christhood attain their goal and become prophets and Christilk, according to their heart's desire. Glossary, findeth his life. Puts material happiness as the goal of his life. Lose it. Lose that material happiness in death. Loseth his life for my sake. Sacrifices his material pleasures in order to contact the blissful Christ consciousness in meditation. Find it. Find everlasting happiness. Receiveth him that sent me. Is in tune with cosmic consciousness which reflects the Christ consciousness present in all creation. Receiveth. Holds wisdom by expanding the capacity of his consciousness. Receiveth the prophet. Is in tune with a prophet's consciousness. A prophet's reward. The wisdom which is rewarded to a prophet. A righteous man's reward. The reward of a virtuous happy life which comes to a righteous man. Little ones. Beginners on the spiritual path. A cup of cold water. A measure of cool wisdom which quenches the scorching thirst of material desires. In the name of a disciple. Through the spiritual vibrations of a disciple. In no wise lose his reward. Will not lose the result or beneficial karma of his good actions. Real service rendered humanity by the disciple. And they went out, and preached that men should repent. And they cast out many devils, and anointed with oil many that were sick, and healed them. Mark 6:12-13. The disciples preached about the vibrations of God consciousness which came through Jesus and asked people to repent and forsake their material attachments so they could attain God consciousness through spiritual awakening. The disciples by the power of their developed will freed people from obsessions and healed many sick people of their various diseases, anointing them with oil. These services distinctly show that the disciples were more than products of a theological school, they were preachers who actually lived the truth in life and thus by their spiritual examples did great good to mankind by healing bodies of physical diseases and souls of ignorance. They were unlike the modern theological students who, just by the virtue of an ecclesiastical degree, try to preach the truth to others from book learning and not from living the truth in actual life. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done, and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while, for there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. Mark 6:30-31. O ye beloved disciples, part with the crowd and come by yourselves into the quietness of a desert place. And relax there and recharge yourself with God consciousness before you go out to preach again. Necessity for God communion before and after preaching. The above saying of Jesus is extremely important in connection with preaching the divine message. Jesus pointed out that the disciples should always be equipped with divine consciousness through deep meditation before they preached about the gospel of God consciousness, and also after they had finished preaching and felt themselves spiritually depleted, when they should again retire in quiet places and recharge themselves with God consciousness. The modern minister, instead of wasting time in reading a lot of books in preparation for the Sunday sermon, should meditate very deeply and have ecstatic contact with God before and after each Sunday sermon. Views of the Masters on diet. The laws by which Jesus performed the miracles of feeding the multitude and of walking on the water. What Jesus meant by faith. After these things Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes, and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread, that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There is a lad here, which hath 5 barley loaves, and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? And Jesus said, Make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down, in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together, and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. John 6:1-13. It is evident that according to the custom of the time, Jesus did not sponsor strict vegetarianism inasmuch as he often ate with his fishermen disciples, and here he distributes the 2 fish to be fed to the multitude. Vegetarian diet for spiritual discipline. It is true that those are in a state of spiritual discipline ought to favor a vegetarian diet. But to the great masters, when they have attained God consciousness, fish eating has little meaning, for they see a whole world as nothing but the manifestation of God's idea. To them all forms of physical experiences are nothing but the different acts of consciousness under the influence of the cosmic dream. When a man is dreaming that he is sitting at a dinner table eating fish, meat, eggs or vegetables, no doubt he feels differently affected according to the taste and different effects of different foods on his dream palate and dream stomach and dream body, but when he awakes from his dream, he finds that his eating of fish, meat, eggs or vegetables in the dreamland are nothing but different forms of imagination and fanciful experience. To the dreaming man there is a difference between the dream dish of fish and of vegetables, but when wakes from the dream he finds that the dream fish and dream vegetable eating were nothing but different ideas and mental experience. To the man of realization, likewise, the very consciousness of giving reality to any form of diet is delusion. When he wakes from the dream delusion of the cosmos, he realizes he is spirit and never ate anything nor had any physical experience or body except in dream consciousness. It should at this time be strictly remembered that the consciousness of the body or the various forms of eating and their different effects on the body must not be ignorantly denied as taught by some orthodox mind-believers. Instead of spending time imagining about the delusion of non-existence of the body, at the same time stimulating the delusion by eating and all forms of activities connected with the body, one should instead spend his time on God contact. when that individual achieves spiritual ecstasy and becomes awake in God consciousness, he will realize that the universe with all its experiences are not his dream but God's dream, dreaming through him. Hence, all spiritual aspirants must first lead a life of spiritual discipline, observing the more healthful vegetarian diet and meditating on God, and not claiming to be men of great realization who are above all ordinary rules of physical life. Rules about fasting. Jesus had told before, that he, the bridegroom, the divine master, and his disciples were not to fast on the Sabbath day as they were already saturated with divine consciousness and needed no fasting to rise above the consciousness of the body. But Jesus also said that when he would be taken away and his spiritual vibration would not be physically present, the disciples would have to fast and lead a life of strict discipline. Jesus could not very well ask the multitude to live on vegetables as there were very little vegetables growing in Asia Minor and the desert places where he preached. Jesus saw that the greatest thing he could do would be to saturate people with God consciousness, and when they would become godlike they would know what to eat. Jesus always looked to the comfort of the people, so he put them by fifties on the green grass. That Jesus also loved order is evidenced by his arranging the multitude into groups. St. Luke, reporting the miracle of the loaves and fishes, tells us, "And he said to his disciples, make them sit down by fifties in a company." When the people were comfortable seated on the grass, receiving some magnetism of the earth, Jesus took the 5 loaves and fishes and gave thanks to God and, looking up into the astral region through his spiritual eye, he charged the 5 loaves and 2 fishes with condensed cosmic energy, so that they contained in their small forms enough energy to satisfy the hunger of 5,000 people. Jesus also cast his cosmic energy into the hungry stomachs of the multitudes, making them realize they had enough energy in their brain and flesh to satisfy all the hunger of the body and to supply the lack of energy experienced during the state of hunger. Thus the multitude was fed with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. If a small eyedropper is connected to a big reservoir of water, that eyedropper would continuously drip 1 drop of water at a time. If thousands of persons drank the drops of water coming through the little eyedropper one at a time, they would be filled even though the water came in tiny drops, but continuously. The water coming in tiny drops is sufficient to quench the thirst of countless people. The 5 loaves and 2 fishes were broken up into tiny fragments, but inwardly they were like the water continuously charged with cosmic energy, so that they kept on continuously materializing themselves into different crumbs of bread and fish according to the divine commandment of Jesus. The first human beings, symbolically called Adam and Eve, were materialized according to the will of God. But later they reproduced themselves through the medium of sex creation. Similarly, though bread is made by man and fish is caught by him from the ocean or lake, he forgets that the original wheat and fish and all things were created by the power of will and special creative energy of God. Jesus had God's power. Jesus, being in tune with God, had the power to create anything at any time. Jesus could command the cosmic energy to condense into electrons, protons, atoms and molecules of any kind, of any density and specific gravity. Thus, Jesus kept on materializing the fragments of fish and bread as they were used up. Also, by his magnetic energy, he charged the multitude with enough magnetism so that they felt satisfied after eating little pieces of bread. Jesus had this power of tremendous magnetism by which he could make 5,000 people think and feel that they were satisfied by eating a few crumbs of bread and fish. Such mental miracles have been also done by some of the miracle workers of India. It must be remembered that the feeling of hunger can be taken away from an individual or many individuals by the suggestion of a strong will. Jesus was a man of great precision. Jesus told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. It is clearly evident in the above saying of Jesus that he actually multiplied the breadcrumbs and fishes by cosmic energy, so that after the 5,000 were fed, there were 12 baskets filled with fragments of barley loaves and fishes. We see, also, that Jesus was a man of great exactness and precision. He taught his disciples to be economical and not to waste God's bread and God-made food. Jesus specially asked the disciples to gather up the fragments of bread and fish because they were the special creations of God on this occasion. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said, "This is of a truth that prophet that should come into the world." When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force, to make him a king, he departed again into a mountain himself alone. John 6:14, 15. Jesus never wanted to be a king of a temporal material kingdom, for he was already the Prince of the universe, being one with the Father, and thus a true king of all kingdoms of the earth. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray, and when the evening was come, he was there alone. Matthew 14:22-23. The fact that Jesus went apart to pray showed that he was still trying to develop in spirit. When the ultimate, final state of God realization is acquired, there is no necessity for praying, because then one becomes always one with God, no matter whether one is in a solitary place or a crowded place. God does not need to pray or meditate because he is omnipresent and is seeking nothing beyond himself. He is engrossed in his joy and need not attain any higher state than his own consciousness. Our evolution depends on our distance from God. All other beings who went out of God into matter can approach nearer and nearer unto the kingdom of God by giving up their prodigal roamings and desires in the land of matter. Souls are more or less advanced according to the various distances that exist between them and God during their return journey back to his mansion. Even Jesus, after his passing, took 3 days to meditate and work out his seeds of actions, karma, left over from past incarnations, and also to work out the sins of his disciples and devotees, for which he partially took upon himself to atone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water, to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. Matthew 14:24-33. Be of good cheer that you are able to witness the miracle of God working through me, that I with my solid body can walk on the water and can talk to you. It is I, the same as you have seen me, with the same physical body. The Spirit in me is your Redeemer from all earthly troubles. Why should you be afraid of me? Great yogis can perform all miracles. The appearance of Jesus walking over the waters in view of his disciples is a miracle that can be performed by great yogis who understand the relation of mind and the electronic composition of the body. When a man of realization discovers the entire cosmos as a dream of God and all matter as made of electrons and protons, light waves, he finds that he rises above the ordinary laws of matter. His body being made of light could not drown in the ocean also made of light. An ordinary individual's body drowns in water because he does not realize that his body is made of the same substance as the water. If a man was drowning in sleep, he would feel the suffocation of drowning during the sleep state. But while he was dreaming that his dream body was drowning in the dream ocean, if he knew the art of changing or controlling his dreams at will, then he could also behold his dream body floating safely on the dream waters by changing his dream thoughts. The art of materializing our imagination. Ordinarily, a human being can imagine or visualize a solid body walking over the liquid waters of an ocean. Now if that person could concentrate deeply and materialize his imagination, he could dream or see a vision of his body walking on the waters. Jesus, being in tune with God, knew that the cosmos was made of the different materialized, dream ideas of God. He saw that his disciples were rowing on a dream ocean and he saw his body was also a dream. Knowing the art of creating or dissolving the cosmic dream, he made the disciples who were under the delusion of a cosmic dream see a cosmic picture of his body walking on the ocean. A glass of milk will dissolve in a gallon of water, but if the liquid milk was frozen it would float. Jesus, knowing the relation of will and body as differentiated dream waves or different electromagnetic waves, could do anything with his body in relation to all matter by mere willing. By willpower he changed the specific gravity or the electronic composition of the body and made it float on water. Iron of materially. If a small piece of cork is tied to a heavy piece of iron, it will drown in a pot of water, but if the iron was separated from the cork would float on top of the water. Likewise, the body is overloaded with the iron of material consciousness. That is why it drowns in water. When the material consciousness is separated from the body by meditation, then the body can float on water or walk or fly in the air at will. In a dream, when one beholds a dream body drowning in a dream ocean, he can by the art of changing dreams see that the dream body is floating safely on the dream waves. As a man can change his thoughts, so a superman can change his experiences in the world, just by changing his intuitive convictions. Peter, by power of faith or mental concentration, became attuned to the consciousness of Christ, free from the material dream of matter. Thus Peter, as he went out of the ship, could walk on the water as he approached Jesus Christ. But when Peter concentrated on the boisterous winds, he forgot his divine consciousness. His habit of beholding matter as real came back into his mind and immediately he felt his body drowning. Peter cried out, "Lord, save me!" And immediately Jesus put forth his hand and caught hold of him, saying, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" What Jesus meant by faith. "O Peter, why did you make your faith and cosmic consciousness little by contradicting it and driving it out by the ordinary consciousness of matter?" Jesus tells Peter that he should always keep his cosmic consciousness steady and not delude it with the consciousness of matter brought through the channel of the habit of doubt. By faith or steady conviction that God is all, one can get away from the consciousness of matter. It should be strictly understood that Jesus did not mean by faith just mental belief which evaporates at the slightest contact with doubt. Jesus had elsewhere told that the harvest was great and there were few laborers to reap it. That is, God consciousness and its powers are unlimited, but there are few people who steadily develop themselves by meditation so that they can form a steady conviction about the all-powerful nature of God. One who is always conscious of the body is not conscious of spirit. In sleep the consciousness of the body is forcibly and temporarily thrown away from the soul. But in meditation the body consciousness is consciously removed. and during ecstasy attained by deeper meditation of faith or deep mental realization comes about the immaterial, electric and mental nature of the body. The greater a man is on the spiritual path, the greater is his faith or meditation-born conviction about the immaterial nature of matter and his own body. When Jesus scolded Peter for losing faith at the time when he was walking on the water, he meant, "Oh Peter, why did you diminish your intuition-born, Christ-consciousness-stimulated faith or self-realization and revive your consciousness of matter through doubt?" Jesus drew meaning in saying, "I am the bread of life, he that cometh to me shall never hunger." Christ-consciousness the only true manna. The day following, when the people which stood on the other side of the sea saw that there was none other boat there, save that one whereinto his disciples were entered, and that Jesus went not with his disciples into the boat, but that his disciples were gone away alone. Howbeit there came other boats from Tiberias nigh unto the place where they did eat bread, after that the Lord had given thanks. When the people therefore saw that Jesus was not there, neither his disciples, they also took shipping, and came to Capernaum, seeking for Jesus. And when they had found him on the other side of the sea, they said unto him, Rabbi, when camest thou hither? Jesus answered them and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, ye seek me, not because ye saw the miracles, but because ye did eat of the loaves, and were filled. Labor not for the meat which perisheth, but for that meat which endureth unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you, for him hath God the Father sealed. John 6:22-27. Jesus said, Verily of truth, I say unto you, by feeling your thoughts within me, I find that you seek me not because my divine miracles roused you to seek God through me, but because you are more interested to quell your hunger by the divinely produced loaves which you ate to your fill. It is foolish for you to concentrate and use up all your time thinking of perishable food to sustain a perishable body. You should seek that divine wisdom and ever new bliss found in meditation which once acquired will endure and help to nourish your life until it becomes immortal. The Spirit within the Son of Man or my body can teach you how to seek that divine bread of wisdom which can make your life everlasting. Transcendental God the Father has kept that salvation-giving, immortality-making bread of divine wisdom concealed in the Christ intelligence which you can contact in meditation by following my teachings through me. Meat or substance. Anyone visiting Jerusalem and the surrounding desert territory will find out the people live mostly on bread and meat and very little on vegetables. Jesus uses the word meat because meat was one of the principal foods of the people who lived in his country. But the word meat is not used at all times by Jesus to signify animal flesh. He used the word meat principally to signify substance. Glossary: meat which perisheth, the food which is perishable. That meat which endureth, divine bliss and wisdom which forever satisfy the soul and are its imperishable nourishments. Sealed. God has sealed all secrets and powers in the Christ consciousness of Jesus to be given to all devotees who meditate on the soul within. Then said they unto him, What shall we do, that we might work the works of God? Jesus answered and said unto them, This is the work of God, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. John 6:28-29. When people suffer and when devotees on earth send out their soul call unto God, then he works and responds by sending a spiritually advanced divine son like me who by his exemplary spiritual life can teach people to be godlike and work God's work in their own lives. God sends his special messenger. In the preceding, Jesus is again saying that ordinary spiritual seekers come in contact with divine books or ordinary spiritual teachers through their inner call, but when a devotee is extremely anxious to know God, then a special messenger or advanced guru preceptor arrives in divine response to the soul's quest. That is why Jesus is subtly pointing out that anyone who wanted to be actually like God and works His truth in his life, must follow somebody who has striven and already attained God consciousness. He re-emphasized that anyone who wishes to work like God must do so through one who knows God. That is why Jesus said that it was the wish of God that true devotees believe in Him and His teachings. Glossary: This is the work of God, the decree of God, that anyone who was in tune with the Christ consciousness in Jesus by deep meditation would find himself working the work and doing the will of God. They said therefore unto him, What sign shewest thou then, that we may see, and believe thee? What dost thou work? Our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven, and giveth life unto the world. John 6:30-33. Verily, from the omniscient insight within me I declare unto you that Moses gave you spiritual inspiration but did not show you how to get the bread of heaven or the cosmic Christ intelligence hidden within cosmic vibratory energy. It is the transcendental God the Father present beyond vibratory creation which sends you, through me, the knowledge of contacting the Christ intelligence hidden behind the heavenly region of cosmic vibratory energy. For the Christ intelligence, the only reflection of God the Father which is hidden behind heaven or cosmic energy, came down on earth and became manifested in my life. Anyone who by meditation will be in tune with my life will be in tune with the everlasting life of Christ intelligence, which is the source that instills life in all living things in the world or cosmos. Belief not enough, living the Christ life is necessary. Jesus was here pointing out to advanced devotees that a mere belief in Him without living His truth in life could not possibly rescue them from the tentacles of cosmic delusion. Jesus in the above words was explaining in parables what kind of bread could nourish the devotee and give him everlasting life. Jesus points out that bread signified the Christ intelligence hidden in heaven or within all cosmic energy. The cosmic energy guided by the latent Christ intelligence transmutes itself into different rates of vibration, creating semi-conscious life force, potentially conscious electrons and protons, atoms, and molecules, which in turn form themselves into solid, liquid, gaseous, and astral living substances constituting the cosmos, island universes, stellar systems, planetary systems, solar systems, the earth and its human inhabitants. Jesus was pointing out that He came on earth not to uplift people only with simple inspirations, but with the distinct mission of teaching people how to expand their consciousness into Christ intelligence so that they could feel the cosmos as their bodies and the Christ intelligence as their own consciousness. Jesus pointed out that no one except souls like him who are in tune with Christ intelligence hidden behind cosmic energy could show other devotees the art of contacting Christ intelligence. As a man is conscious of his mind cognizing any sensation at any part of the body, so a crystal master is aware of his consciousness present in everything, and he knows and feels in his consciousness everything that occurs in any part of the cosmos. This is also what Jesus meant when He said, Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing? And one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father. Matthew 10:29. God is consciousness of all. God is conscious of every point in space and matter, and saints who are in tune with Him become omniscient like Him. By bread of God, Jesus signified the Christ intelligence which is present in cosmic energy working the work of creation. Jesus also pointed out that His body which came down on earth was not sustained by ordinary human consciousness, but that Christ intelligence was present within Him, the same Christ intelligence which gave consciousness and life to all living creatures in the cosmos. Glossary: Gave you not the bread could not give the all-redeeming Christ consciousness. Heaven, the light or astral region behind space. Father, cosmic consciousness as a conscious personality. True bread, the Christ intelligence which is the true substance, sustaining all. Bread of God, Christ consciousness emanating from God which is the divine bread sustaining all creation and created objects. Is he which cometh down from heaven, the Christ consciousness which came down from infinite space and became manifested in the human body of Jesus. Giveth life to the world, sustains all created things. Christ promises everlasting life to all his devotees. All those who by meditation have enlarged their consciousness to receive the infinite. Then said they unto him, Lord, evermore give us this bread. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life, he that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. But I said unto you, that ye also have seen me, and believe not. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven, not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. And this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son, and believeth on him, may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. John 6:34-40. The Christ intelligence and the enlightened I am, or ego, human consciousness, in me are one. Thus the Christ consciousness in me is the source of life and consciousness of all living beings. Because the Christ consciousness is manifest in my life and I am conscious of it, any devotee who comes to me with a receptive attitude and who disciplines his life according to my teachings, will find the hunger of all mortal and spiritual wants forever satisfied. Human beings, being a reflection of God's image, can never remain satisfied with material things. All their material and spiritual hungers are satisfied only by tuning in with their divine nature in Christ consciousness. Any soul who comes to me, that is, any soul who can permanently contact his human consciousness with the Christ consciousness within me, shall find all the hunger and craving of his earthly desires fulfilled forever. The devotee who occasionally is in tune with the Christ consciousness which is present in him and me and believes or is convinced of being able to contact that Christ consciousness and the ever-new bliss in it, will find that, unlike the ordinary man, he will not thirst for the temporary joys of material things. What is true belief? But I say unto you that you who have only seen me, my body, and have not felt the Christ consciousness within it have not believed as to what is in me. That devotee who tunes in his devotion and attention with my consciousness, no matter how sinful or error-stricken he is, I will never forsake him. He is my brother who unknowingly hides the image of God's consciousness beneath his delusion-stricken mind. For the consciousness hidden behind my earthly body is the same universal Christ consciousness which is present behind heavenly cosmic energy. As the Christ intelligence in all creation is in tune with the will of God the Father existing beyond creation, so is my will tuned with his will. Foretells his crucifixion. The will of God the Father vibrates within my human consciousness and intimates to me that all the power of Christ intelligence and Christ consciousness which was reflected into me during my earth life must be consciously used by me, without my losing any iota of it during the physical crucifixion of my body, and retained after death, on the last day, when the seeds of actions of all my past lives, karma, will be forever finished. On that last day after my crucifixion I will lift my Christ consciousness and unite it with God the Father's consciousness after attaining final victory over all my karmas. And this is the will of God the Father who is the creator of my body and the Christ consciousness in it, that every advanced devotee who in the light of his meditation developed intuition becomes one with the Christ consciousness or only reflected, begotten, Son of Christ intelligence in creation and is able to retain that consciousness of unity, believing in the unity with Christ consciousness attained in meditation, that illumined soul will find his life one with the everlasting life in Christ consciousness. All karma destroyed? And on the last day when my seeds of actions are burned up in the fires of wisdom, then I will lift my Christ consciousness in creation to the region of cosmic consciousness existing beyond creation, and my human consciousness and my body after crucifixion, being in tune with the ultimate, all-powerful cosmic consciousness of God the Father, will also find immortality. I will then perceive my body not as a part of temporary change but as an emanation of the changeless immortality, and then my body tunes to cosmic consciousness, after overcoming the delusion of its crucifixion, will also dissolve in the cosmic consciousness, retaining its individuality, materializing anywhere, anytime, at my will or at the devotee's call. Through my universal Christ consciousness each devotee convinced of the presence of Christ intelligence within will be lifted up forever on the last day when all his stored up seeds of action in the physical, astral and causal bodies will be removed from his soul. Bread of life. In the above, bread of life refers to the Christ consciousness which sustains all the souls of all living beings. It must be noted that the two phrases cometh to me and believeth on me have different significance. He that cometh signifies a soul who is one with Christ consciousness, and he that believeth signifies one who has only occasional Christ consciousness by meditation. When Jesus speaks of every one which seeth the Son, by the word seeth he means the power of intuition or feeling which can see, hear, smell, taste or touch. It is quite evident that all people who saw Jesus Christ 1900 years ago were not saved, and there are many Christians today who believe in Jesus Christ and yet are not saved, because they consciously know nothing of him in wisdom nor do they try to feel him in meditation. Only those who have developed the all-knowing intuition by regular, deep meditation can see or intuitively perceive the Son or Christ consciousness which exists beyond the states of consciousness, subconsciousness, and dreamless superconsciousness. The Jews then murmured at him, because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. And they said, Is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he saith, I came down from heaven? Jesus therefore answered and said unto them, Murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me, except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all taught of God. Every man therefore that hath heard, and hath learned of the Father, cometh unto me. Not that any man hath seen the Father, save he which is of God, he hath seen the Father. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me hath everlasting life. I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness, and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof, and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever, and the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. John 6:41-51. Men born by compulsion. Do not murmur or vibrate with doubt, thus dislodging the divine understanding which I am trying to transmit among you. You are too material to understand who I am. Most people come on earth being compelled by the seeds of actions of their past lives. But in my final incarnation as Jesus, when I shall attain final liberation, I come not for my own liberation only but for helping others to liberate themselves by showing them the art of contacting Christ consciousness and cosmic consciousness. You all think that your earthly father was the cause of your human birth, but I know even though my body was born to the house of Joseph, still my earthly temple and the Christ intelligence in it came on earth directly through the will of the Father to fulfill a mission of liberating souls. Likewise, remember that you who are so near my body cannot realize or come near the Christ intelligence in me. You must realize that no one who is identified with his earthly body can be one with me, the Christ intelligence which is present beyond the state of human consciousness, subconsciousness, and superconsciousness. Only devotees who deeply see God are blessed and are so directed by Him that they find the right teachings and meditate and go beyond the subconscious, conscious and superconscious states to be one with the Christ consciousness in all creation. Even you who are close to my body have had some good karma by which the Heavenly Father sent you to me. Every devotee who meets a divine Superman is so blessed by the Heavenly Father who responded to the devotee's spiritual cravings. Devotees will be liberated. Every devotee who by the earnestness of his spiritual desires and by deep meditation every day often communes with Christ consciousness, will find, on the day when all his seeds of actions of all lives will be burned in the fire of his Christ wisdom, that I, the Christ intelligence present in him, will lift his consciousness from the domain of matter to the kingdom of completely liberating cosmic consciousness. The older prophets who communed with God wrote that all those who will come near me will be taught the way of communing with God the Father through Christ intelligence attained in deep meditation. Every truth-seeking man who has heard the cosmic vibration in meditation emanating from the cosmic consciousness will find that he has to feel the Christ consciousness in all creation before he can finally feel the cosmic consciousness which vibrates beyond all creation, tuning in with Christ. And I say unto you, no man who is identified with his body can possibly see or be one with God the Father, or cosmic consciousness existing beyond creation. Only those attain who have lifted their inner being from consciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness and Christ consciousness to cosmic consciousness by deep meditation and conscious ecstasy. He who has learned the art of communing with God the Father by hearing the cosmic vibration and feeling the Christ consciousness in it, is of God and has seen or become one with cosmic consciousness the Father, by the all-feeling power of his developed intuition. Verily, through the cosmic consciousness in me, I declare unto all, that the devotee who really believes in communing with the Christ intelligence in him by daily deep ecstasy has found his life tuned to everlasting life. The human consciousness, I am, in me is one with the Christ consciousness, bread, which sustains the souls and lives of all. Your forefathers ate the so-called manna or divine inspiration in the wilderness of silence and still they are dead, that is, their souls have not eternally awakened in wisdom and thus freed from births and deaths. I know this from my omniscient Christ consciousness which knows the history of all souls on earth. But this Christ consciousness, bread, which was hidden behind the heavenly ramparts of cosmic energy and is manifest now in my body can produce deathlessness in true devotees who can with their human consciousness eat or absorb the Christ consciousness in everything. The I am human consciousness in me is united with the ever-living Christ intelligence which is hidden behind heavenly cosmic energy and which is manifested now in my body. If any devotee continuously nourishes his life with this bread of Christ intelligence, he shall find his life united forever with everlasting life. And the bread or Christ intelligence manifesting as my flesh or condensed cosmic energy I will give to the true devotee that he may unite it with the life force in his body, life of the world or life felt in the world, and make it immortal. For worldly people in general, that they might awaken and try to find the everlasting life in them, I will sacrifice my flesh on the cross which after 3 days will be quickened into Christ consciousness and immortality. In the above, Jesus speaks of bread as the Christ consciousness within him and goes on to say that his Christ consciousness and flesh are one and the same. Jesus could say this because he saw that his flesh was not as ordinary human beings perceived it, but was nothing but the emanations of Christ consciousness. Delusion of separation. If a man in a dream sees that he is going to be crucified and then is crucified in the dream, he realizes on waking that his dream-perceived body, before his dream crucifixion and after his dream crucifixion, was an inseparable manifestation of his own consciousness. So Jesus Christ, when he was foretelling that he would give up his flesh in crucifixion as a symbol of sacrifice of material happiness of the body for spiritual bliss of the soul, realized that the Christ consciousness within his body and the body both were everlasting, being nothing but the emanations of one God consciousness. Jesus' true meaning: eat my flesh and drink my blood. Whydid Christ allow Judas to betray him? Did God or Satan use Judas as an instrument of destiny? The Jews therefore strove among themselves, saying, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh, and drinketh my blood, hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood, dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna, and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live for ever. John 6:52-58. The Jews murmured among themselves, Is this man advocating cannibalism by offering people his flesh? Jesus answered them and their doubting materialistic minds which were unable to understand his wisdom hidden behind parables, as follows: Unless the devotee eats and absorbs the flesh of Christ consciousness hidden in the Son of Man or human body, and drinks his blood or absorbs the vitally giving cosmic energy present in it, he cannot feel the everlasting life present within him. Most of you are the living dead, walking dead. You do not perceive the everlasting life in you, nor do you charge your life with cosmic energy and your consciousness with Christ consciousness hidden behind your body consciousness. Any devotee who can absorb in his human consciousness my Christ consciousness by ecstasy and who can unite his life force in the body with my omnipresent cosmic energy, blood, will find his consciousness immortal and his life eternal. For my flesh of Christ consciousness present in all souls is the real meat or the substance which can forever satisfy the hunger of wisdom of all souls. The Christ intelligence-guided cosmic energy, my blood, is the only vitality that can charge the human life with immortality, and quench the thirst of all human desires of earthly life. Eateth my flesh or absorb my consciousness. That devotee who by deep ecstatic meditation has absorbed my Christ consciousness in his human consciousness and recharged his life force with the Christ consciousness guided cosmic energy, is united in his being with Christ consciousness. The ever-living God the Father, cosmic consciousness present beyond vibratory creation, is the one that has reflected his everlasting life in the Christ intelligence, present in all vibratory creation. That devotee who absorbs, eateth, Christ consciousness or Christ intelligence, finds that his consciousness and life are sustained forever by Christ consciousness which is equally present in the body of the devotee and my body which is called Jesus Christ. This is the Christ consciousness or bread which is hidden behind heavenly cosmic energy and is manifest beneath the body called Jesus Christ. Your fathers who ate the manna of temporary spiritual inspiration have not fully awakened in wisdom nor been freed from rebirths and death. truths, but any one of you who by deep meditation absorbs in his consciousness the Christ consciousness, bread, will find his life united to eternal life. In the above words of Jesus, one must strictly understand that he is speaking of very profound truths in parables. He speaks of his flesh as bread or Christ consciousness present in all vibratory creation, and of his blood as cosmic energy. Christ consciousness and cosmic energy are inseparable, as Christ consciousness is the reflection of cosmic consciousness, which is beyond creation, manifested as cosmic energy or vibratory creation. Difference between God the Father and Christ the Son. God the Father and cosmic consciousness are one and the same thing. Christ the Son and Christ consciousness are one and the same thing. God the Father emanated from him his Son, Christ intelligence, and cosmic energy, the Holy Ghost. As a son cannot be born without the dual instrumentality of the father and the mother, so Christ intelligence could not exist without the dual instrumentality of God the Father and cosmic energy. Therefore, Christ intelligence, the bread or flesh, and the cosmic energy or blood, being inseparably together, work to manifest the different forms of creation and cosmic manifestations. Jesus Christ speaks of the bread and the flesh as one and the same thing. The flesh of the Son of Man refers to the Christ consciousness present in the body of Christ as well as the body of any individual. Drink his blood refers to the cosmic energy to be united with the life energy, both of which are present in the human body and can be united by wisdom. Eat refers to the act of absorbing. The word drink his blood refers to recharging the life force with cosmic energy, blood. Symbolic Christian rites. There are ceremonies in Christian churches in which people drink blessed wine as the blood of Jesus Christ and blessed bread as his flesh. This is symbolical. This ceremony should remind true devotees that by learning the technique of meditation from a Christ-like soul they can learn to eat or absorb Christ consciousness, bread, in their consciousness and drink or recharge in their lives the blood or cosmic energy present in Christ consciousness, and thus attain everlasting life. These things said he in the synagogue, as he taught in Capernaum. Many therefore of his disciples, when they had heard this said, "This is an hard saying, who can hear it?" When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples murmured at it, he said unto them, Doth this offend you? What and if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before? It is the Spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, and they are life. But there are some of you that believe not. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were that believed not, and who should betray him. John 6:59-64. I am astonished to find that not only do you not understand the priceless wisdom I give to you, but you are misunderstanding and murmuring about it. You doubt my words and wonder at my sayings, but how much more amazed you would be if you saw my body, the Son of Man, go back to the Christ consciousness whence it came. Jesus here means that his consciousness was tuned already with Christ consciousness, and that his body, though visibly apart from that consciousness, could go back to it. Jesus was hinting that his body, being an emanation of Christ consciousness, would merge in it when the proper moment arrived. Jesus promises proof. Jesus tells his doubting disciples that if they wonder at his amazing sayings they would have cause to be further astonished when they would behold his body after crucifixion return to life and be received by heavenly Christ consciousness. In other words, Jesus promised his doubting disciples a demonstration of the truth contained in his subtle sayings. When you concentrate on the Spirit, you understand that it can enliven your temporary life with eternal life. It is the flesh consciousness or doubting material consciousness within you which will yield you no profit, no lasting happiness. It is your spiritual understanding that can quickly lead you to your goal of eternal emancipation. Your fleshly consciousness, Your identification with material matters, and the doubts born of them, will not give you ultimate happiness. You must realize the words of wisdom which I speak unto are charged with the cosmic consciousness of the Spirit and can give life to the spiritually dead, like some of you who believe not that the universal panacea of all human suffering lies hidden behind the words of my wisdom, if they are truly applied in life. When Jesus speaks of his words being spirit and life, he tries to convey the truth that every word has two aspects: the consciousness contained in it and the energy which it produces. When a mentally sick man is repentant and hears the word peace from a saintly individual, he is saturated with the consciousness of peace and mental encouragement or life-giving energy. Thus Jesus made it clear to his disciples that if they were in tune with him they would feel the Christ wisdom of spirit behind his words and life-giving energy contained in them. Living words of the Master. The words of Jesus did not come from a book. They emanated directly from his fountain of cosmic consciousness and all life-sustaining energy. Those who are spiritual and wise retire every day behind the forest of thoughts and seek the caves of silence hidden in the rock of contemplation. There in the caves of silence the true devotee can drink from the fountain of spirit and life, flowing from the words of Jesus. All masters like Christ who are tuned with Christ consciousness give forth words which are charged with the cosmic consciousness of spirit and its all-sustaining life force. Due to his all-seeing wisdom which could trace the law of cause and effect governing the actions of any individual, Jesus knew from the beginning who believed in him and who would betray him, and he said, "Therefore said I unto you, that no man can come unto me, except it were given unto him of my Father." John 6:65. From my divine consciousness I know those of you who have stored up good actions and karmas, and I have earned divine compassion by which you will be actuated to follow me. I know also those with bad karmas who will leave me. No materially minded man can reach and be in tune with the Christ consciousness within me unless by his devotion he has appealed to the Supreme God, the Father. In the above Jesus pointed out to his disciples that it was not easy for anyone to recognize the Christ consciousness in him unless that individual had gained previous good karma and the cooperation of the cosmic law. From that time many of his disciples went back, and walked no more with him. Then said Jesus unto the 12, Will ye also go away? Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. And we believe and are sure that thou art that Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered them, Have not I chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil? He spake of Judas Iscariot the son of Simon, for he it was that should betray him, being one of the 12. John 6:66-71. Power of free will. It is clear that Jesus was not in doubt as to whether his chosen 12 disciples would go away from him, but he respected their free will and reminded them that they could remain with him or go away if they pleased. It must be clearly understood that elsewhere when Jesus said, The harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few, he distinctly emphasized that the harvest of God consciousness could be reaped by using the free will for spiritual labor by self-discipline and meditation. The law is that the more one spiritually labors, the more he will reap the spiritual harvest of God consciousness. Devotees ordain the happenings of their lives according to prenatal and postnatal seeds of action, karma. Therefore, when Jesus said, Have not I chosen you 12, according to your karma, and one of you is a devil? He did not speak of this as an inevitable arbitrary ordinance of God. He told this from his intimate knowledge of the inner life of all his 12 disciples. Prediction about Judas. If Jesus was sure that all his 12 disciples were prisoners of destiny and were ordained to remain with him, he would not have asked, Will ye also go away? Jesus knew the disciples, though influenced by karma and cosmic law, still had free will to be with him or to forsake him. In fact, Jesus predicted his betrayal at the hands of Judas in order to warn him, that he might reform and refrain from doing the evil act. Judas was the best unpaid and unemployed publicity agent of Jesus Christ, and indirectly helped greatly to broadcast the ideal life and teachings of Jesus Christ to the world. Was it a plan of God or Satan to test Judas? The question arises, was it God who planned that Judas should betray Jesus and thus serve as a divine scapegoat? Or was it Satan, the cosmic evil, who planned it? In order to understand this very complex situation, one must clearly grasp all the causes which operated to bring about the circumstances of Jesus' betrayal by Judas. Jesus Christ in his divine consciousness felt the ignorance and wickedness of the people around him. He picked 12 as the best he could find among them. Of course, it must be remembered that Jesus chose the 12 disciples because he knew them and had already trained them in former lives so that they could act as his perfect messengers to work out the will of God during his last incarnation on earth. Jesus knowingly chose Judas as his disciple because he had already trained him in a former incarnation and had accepted him as a spiritual son in spite of his wickedness. Just as a father cannot forsake a wicked son who is born of his own blood, so a guru preceptor cannot forsake a spiritual son or a disciple who becomes wicked. Jesus loved Judas. Jesus knew that the 11 disciples by their spirituality would spread his cause into the world, and Judas by his betrayal would offer him, Jesus, a great test leading to his final victory over evil. Jesus chose Judas as a disciple, for he had already chosen him in past lives, and considered him as a prodigal son. Jesus loved Judas and gave him the opportunity of being better in the Christ-like environment of the disciples. Foreknowledge of his betrayal by Judas did not prevent that great heart of Jesus from accepting Judas in the divine family of his disciples. Judas had been a good disciple, but in his last life, just before he died and was born as Judas, he had made up his mind to forsake his better nature and become greedy and evil. Judas had within him plenty of latent prenatal good seeds of actions by which he attracted the company of his former guru preceptor, Jesus Christ, but because of a buried evil tendency of greed he betrayed his master. Hidden bomb of greed. Jesus as a spiritual doctor diagnosed the life of Judas as it had been in many incarnations, and knew of the hidden bomb of financial greed hidden in his subconscious mind which would explode in the form of betrayal. The cosmic evil force also knew about the manifestation of God in Jesus and what he was going to do to destroy the kingdom of delusion. That is why this conscious satanic force of delusion or evil used the weakness of Judas to betray Jesus Christ. God and Jesus Christ in turn also knew how Satan was to influence Judas through the invitation of his own bad karma, action. God also knew that even though the satanic force of evil would cause Jesus to be crucified, yet Christ would attain final victory over satanic delusion by redeeming his soul through the sacrifice of the body, and by resurrecting his body again through the power of his soul force. God did not try to overcome evil by evil material force. That is why Jesus did not want to borrow 12 legions of angels from his Father to be saved, but allowed himself to be crucified. Satan thought that by the betrayal of Judas, Jesus would be killed, and thus prevented from spreading the kingdom of God, which is detrimental to the existence of the kingdom of satanic delusion. If Jesus had used supernatural force to destroy Satan, he would have been victorious. But if Jesus had been afraid to die for God and had loved his body, he would have had to reincarnate, remaining a slave to delusion and Satan. Even though Satan succeeded in crucifying Jesus temporarily, still Jesus, by his resurrection of soul and body, foiled the wishes of Satan. On the other hand, Judas and Satan, by crucifying Jesus, drew the attention of the world to Christ and spread his message all over the earth. God knew that Jesus, by resisting evil with evil, would get into the toils of evil, but by trying to overcome evil by good would ultimately be victorious over all evil. Evil destroys itself. Evil ultimately becomes the tool of God in an indirect way. For evil, trying to destroy good, makes it a martyr and thus immortalizes it. These truths explained why Jesus was predicting about his crucifixion. Just as a good student knows he is surely going to pass in the examination, so Jesus knew that though his own test, according to his own karma, the karma of Judas, and the agency of Satan, would be very great, he would ultimately through crucifixion pass the final examination of his earth life and after 3 days would be forever freed. Jesus reproached to the Pharisees that they followed the commandments of men rather than the commandments of God. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honour thy father and mother, and, he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honour not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. Ye hypocrites, well did Esaias prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Matthew 15:1-9. Tell me, why do you spend your time in following localized customs and forget to follow God's commandments? Tell me, which is a greater sin, to ignore tradition and follow God's commandments, or to ignore God's commandments in order to follow traditional customs? You know full well that in order to outwardly appear holy you prefer to follow your traditional customs and utterly reject the commandments of God. For God commanded, that is, God vibrated his law and wish through the prophet's intuition, honor your father and mother with the devotion of your heart as they are the divine instruments of your creation, and he that curseth or uses vile language or thinks evil thoughts against his father and mother, let him die the death, that is, let him be remorseful with the agony as intense as death, and let him change himself and his consciousness even as one is changed in death. Honor thy parents. One must remember that the parents are the physical incarnations of God who protects the baby. Therefore, a son who blasphemes against his parents blasphemes against God who manifests on earth as the parental love which protects the son. Yet you have made laws which enable a man to be free from his obligations to his parents, and thus help him to break the commandment of God for honoring father and mother. O ye hypocrites, who are outwardly holy and inwardly wicked, how fittingly Esaias prophesied about you after feeling these truths from his consciousness of cosmic vibration. Indeed, he prophesied correctly about the nature of those who come to masters with sweet language and respectful utterances, but with hearts sunk deep in the depths of insincerity. In vain do such men worship me, since they teach for doctrines the commandments of men in preference to the commandments of God. Wash your souls. Because you have laid aside the law of God for perfect living as revealed through the prophets, you have clung to useless traditions of men, such as the washing of hands before meals. Isn't it better that you wash your souls by following the pure laws of God as revealed through the seers rather than spend your time in following traditional customs which produce no lasting spiritual results? Many priests of East and West emphasize the following of traditional rules in preference to the following of the spirit of spiritual rules. Some of the ancient Jews made a law that if a man in a fit of anger or with wicked intentions promised to give his earthly goods to the service of the temple, and even though they might never be utilized for the purpose, he could not then be required to give those goods to help his needy parents. Obedience to this Korban law made by man amounted to disobedience of the commandments of God. Jesus by his criticism pointed out how the following of this ceremonial law might lead to the violation of divine law. And he called the multitude, and said unto them, Hear, and understand, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Matthew 15:10-11. Lend me your attention, all of you, and by tuning your attention with me try to understand that no outward custom or evil environment can affect a man from outside his consciousness, but any experience or thought which gets into his consciousness and saturates it and then comes out of him as an evil desire or action does desecrate him and bring suffering unto him. If any man has the ears of understanding, let him understand. In the above Jesus points out that the action of his disciples of eating bread without washing their hands did not affect their souls. The Pharisees and scribes who practiced holy customs outwardly were not affected spiritually inside and were thus hypocrites. Jesus says that no matter what the outer environment, whether good or bad, it cannot affect a man like the good or bad in his own heart. A virtuous man in a bad environment usually remains good, and a wicked man in a good environment usually remains evil. Jesus does not say that the outward environment has no effect on man, but he emphasizes that the inner environment of man is of more importance than the outward environment. A man should first establish good within his soul, think good, and live good, and automatically he will attract a good environment. But a man who emphasizes the following of outwardly practiced good customs but does not take care to drive the evil thoughts coming out of his inner self, is defiled and full of evil. In order to know a man, one should judge him, not from his outward actions but according to the springs or motives of his actions. It is the evil motive coming out of a man which actuates him to do evil, nothing else. Of course, there are some evils committed by children through imitation. In that case, of course, the children cannot be held responsible. But when the child does evil through his own innate desire, he becomes increasingly evil and is defiled. An experience with my great master in India. Once my great master, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, watched me raise my hand to kill a mosquito that was biting my body. But when he found that I suddenly changed my mind, he said, "Why don't you finish the job?" In astonishment, I replied, "Why, Master, do you advocate killing?" To that the Master replied, "You have killed the mosquito in your mind already and have already committed the sin. What is the difference if you do not kill it physically?" The Master did not mean that whenever anybody has a desire to kill a man or a mosquito, he should kill them, but he meant that a man should not feel the desire to kill at all. For the desire to kill, harbored in the mind even for a moment, might turn the individual eventually into a murderer. But it must also be noted that it is better to suppress the desire to kill anything or anybody than to commit the actual act of killing. But it is the greatest achievement when one can remain free from evil thoughts, which are the basic cause of all evil actions. Then came his disciples, and said unto him, "Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended, after they heard this saying?" But he answered and said, "Every plant, which my heavenly Father hath not planted, shall be rooted up. Let them alone, they be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch." Matthew 15:12-14. Every plant of human law of living which is grown only on the soil of tradition is a weed and shall be destroyed by the cosmic law as useless to mankind. All those rules that the prophets have declared through their cosmic consciousness as useful to mankind will endure to the end. Let the Pharisees alone. Leave them in their much-loved self-created darkness. The Pharisees are spiritually blind leaders of their spiritually blind followers. If the spiritually blind lead the people blind with ignorance together, they must fall into the misery-making ditch of ignorance. Parallel quotation. There is a parallel quotation in the Hindu scriptures which says, "A blind man leading the blind, both are misled." In the above words Jesus expressed indignation, for the disciples felt that he had offended the Pharisees. Jesus replied by saying that all evil man-made customs would perish and God-made eternal rules of life would endure to the end. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, Are ye also yet without understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man. Matthew 15:15-20. O you, my true disciples, are you also without divine understanding? Don't you understand that any outward custom cannot spoil a man because he does not feel it in his heart? Heart, seat of feeling. According to the great Hindu master, Patanjali, the feelings of the heart are responsible for all our entanglements in earthly lives. According to him, man was sent on earth as a perfect image of God to be entertained there. But when a man forgets the immortal nature within him, and forms likes and dislikes in his heart about material things, he becomes earthbound. He reincarnates on earth due to the likes and dislikes in his feelings acquired in past lives. The soul that comes on earth and experiences everything with non-attachment in the heart does not reincarnate but becomes liberated in God from which it came. Man is sent on earth to witness earthly experiences with the attitude of a divine being made in the image of God. But when man builds likes and dislikes in his heart about all earthly experiences, he becomes entangled in them. That is why Jesus emphasized that actions like eating bread with unwashed hands does not touch a clean heart. The bread only affects the stomach, whereas evil thoughts affect the soul. But those springs of action which appear as evil language and come out of the mouth, come from within the heart, which first feels evil and then manifests it in spoken language. Evil thoughts defile. These evil thoughts which man feels within himself actually defile him. Evil thoughts act as a smoke screen of ignorance which hides the purity and everlasting joy of the soul from the conscious mind of a man. A man who feels evil and harbors wrong thoughts from within him is unable to perceive the evil hidden subtle beauty of his own soul. A man who lives in the darkness of evil invites physical, mental and spiritual suffering. A man who thinks bright and cheerful thoughts and feels noble thoughts within him finds that through the transparency of his inner luminous living all the beauty and joy of his soul pours forth and shines into his conscious mind. Jesus said, Don't you know, dear ones, out of the evil tendencies stored up in the heart of men, chitta or feeling, through their past stored up bad karma, all evil thoughts and actions spring? Desires for adultery, and adulterous actions, fornications or idolatry, desires for murders and murderous actions, theftful thoughts and theftful actions, covetous thoughts and covetous actions, desires to appear as false witnesses and the acts of appearing as false witnesses, desires to deceive and deceitful actions, lascivious thoughts and actions, desires to curse and curseful actions, desires to blaspheme and blasphemous actions, feelings of pride and boastful actions, and all foolishness, are the children born out of the wicked tendencies stored up in the heart of man, through his ignorant actions of his life and past forms of existence. All these evil tendencies defile him, bringing all forms of miseries unto him. But outward ceremonies such as eating with washed hands do not affect the soul of man. God sends his perfected devotees as world saviors for the various cycles of history. The reality of Satan and evil. Then Jesus went thence, and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And, behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou Son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Matthew 15:21-24. Whenever the earth becomes burdened with sin, then from time to time as needed the Heavenly Father sends a self-made spiritual master to a special race where the spiritual hold is needed most. That is why, although my teachings are universal and will be applicable and useful to all lives on earth at all times, still I am not sent for all present, as I have been especially ordained by the Heavenly Father to act as the spiritual shepherd to the bewildered sheep of spiritual seekers belonging to the house of Israel. The Israelites once were deeply virtuous and stored up prenatal good karmas, past actions, and tendencies in their souls so that their accumulated power of good karmas sent out a silent call to the Heavenly Father. In response to that call, the Heavenly Father sent me as the Savior of the Israelites in this cycle. The Lord's promise. The above words of Jesus distinctly point out the truth of the greatest Hindu Bible, Bhagavad Gita, which declared, centuries before the birth of Christ, O devotee Bharata, as often as there is decline of virtue on earth, so often I, the Spirit, ordain some form of mine to incarnate on earth to give everlasting life to the virtuous and show the sinful how to destroy their sins. In order to establish the predominance of virtue on earth, I, the Spirit, appear through the different incarnated souls of masters from time to time in different cycles. Prophets of God. Krishna, the prophet. Krishna appeared many centuries before Christ to redeem the virtuous Pandava people of India who were oppressed by the wicked Kauras. He was one of the great masters who was able to fully manifest all the qualities of God in his life, and through the sage Vyasa gave India its greatest Hindu Bible, Bhagavad Gita. Buddha, the compassionate. Buddha appeared in India to prevent cruelty to men and animals. He incarnated there when the message of mercy was extremely needed. He emphasized the necessity of developing sympathy for men and animals, in order to feel the presence of God in all. Through Buddha many sacrifices of animals in the temples were stopped. Jesus, the Christ. 5 centuries later Jesus appeared to bring the message of faith and devotion and healing of body, mind and soul. Philosopher Shankara. In the 7th century AD, Swami Shankara, Shankaracharya, incarnated to bring the positive idea of God as the ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new bliss. The positive conception of God was much needed for the over-intellectualized classes of India, who had developed a doctrine of annihilation as the ultimate end of life. This evil doctrine arose from a misinterpretation of the idea of nirvana or cessation of rebirths taught by Buddha. He merely had said that desires cause rebirth and any soul who overcame material desires would be free. He did not mean that souls would cease to exist. A soul who is free from material desire, according to Swami Shankara, became united to the positive state of ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new God of bliss. Swami Shankara pointed out that God, being ever-new bliss, was a universal necessity and the highest goal of life which everybody should strive to attain by discrimination and meditation of the inner self, where the infinite spirit as the ever-new bliss could be found secreted. Later on, Sri Chaitanya came in India to spread the true love of God. In modern times, Lahiri Mahasaya came to show Christians and Hindus and all other devotees the scientific technique of concentration and meditation by which they could contact God. Lahiri Mahasaya especially emphasized that all religionists should rise above their superficial differences, concentrate on the universal principles of morality, and learn the highest technique for tuning the mind with the infinite. Lahiri Mahasaya's doctrine is especially unique in the fact that, apart from advices on moral culture and self-discipline, it gives definite techniques of step-by-step self-realization by which one, through the attainment of various superconscious, Christ-conscious and cosmic conscious states, can ultimately merge in the Supreme Being. Lahiri Mahasaya's teaching is specially suited to the modern age and for people of all religions because it does not ask anyone to believe anything dogmatically, but by definite technique to find out all the truth about himself and God. Lahiri Mahasaya has given to the world different techniques of meditation which produce distinct universal states of self-realization until cosmic consciousness is attained by the highest ecstasy. Each of the above masters or saviors, by their own self-made spiritual effort, manifested different degrees of God's qualities in their lives. All masters, when they are almost fully spiritually developed, come on earth through the will of God to carry out His special dispensations. These masters are often called incarnations of God, but it should be strictly remembered that God Himself in His full perfection never comes down on earth through any human body. If God came as a human being and displayed the imitations of a human being, He would be imitating the frailties of human life. All prophets of God who come on earth were tempted and had to overcome certain human frailties in order to attain the final state of cosmic consciousness. If God appeared in a human form, He could not be tempted, and if He were merely playing out the part of overcoming a temptation, being really aloof in His divine consciousness, then that temptation was no temptation to God at all. God can overcome temptation, for He has no inclination to be tempted, and thus He certainly could not be an example to human beings who are really tempted. But when human beings find that Jesus was tempted but by His divine consciousness overcame His human consciousness, then they, too, hope and feel encouraged to overcome their own strong temptations. Jesus was a fit instrument to work out God's plan. The truth is that Jesus, having attained high self-development by self-discipline, prayer on mountain tops, and meditation through many lives, was chosen by God to be a suitable instrument to show suffering mankind the way by which any soul could spiritually labor and reap the plenteous harvest of divinity. It must be distinctly remembered that God does not manufacture Christ-like souls in heaven and send them on earth to play out divinely planned parts to inspire weak mortals, human even as we. A God-created Jesus Christ crucified on the cross could not have felt physical pain. His crying out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," would then be only an utterance of a divine automaton. Jesus Christ was tempted, He wept, He suffered like any other human being, but through the accumulated development of many incarnations by which He exteriorized the potential image of God consciousness hidden within Him, He became a Christ, or one endowed with Christ consciousness. Two quotations from St. Paul bear on this point, "For verily He took not on Him the nature of angels, but He took on Him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behoved Him to be made like unto His brethren, that He might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that He Himself hath suffered being tempted, He is able to succor them that are tempted." Hebrews 2:16-18. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Hebrews 4:15. Because Jesus was human and divine and by spiritual labor reaped the plenteous spiritual harvest of God consciousness, therefore the Heavenly Father sent him on earth to work out his last efforts for final salvation there. At the same time, while Jesus was striving to attain his finality on earth, he was to serve as a spiritual example to misery-laden people of the earth. Prophets knew about Jesus. Prophets who declared the coming of Jesus Christ on earth were spiritually advanced enough to know the inner life of the man Jesus through many incarnations. That is why the ancient seers knew exactly what would happen in the life of Jesus Christ during his incarnation on earth, even as astronomers by mathematical calculations can predict the appearance of comets years before they are visible. There are many Old Testament prophecies concerning the life and death of Jesus Christ. Equality of souls. All souls of men are potentially the perfect images of God. Hence there is no difference between the soul of an ordinary individual and the soul of a master. The difference between an ordinary human being and a master, however, lies in the fact that the human being by his charcoal mentally does not reflect the sunlight of God, whereas the master by his own diamond mentality fully reflects the sunlight of God falling on him. Great masters who have fully attained the lost consciousness of God within themselves are all essentially equal, but they are differentiated according to their works on earth. Masters are distinguished according to the number of Christ-like souls they have helped to produce on earth and according to the number of people they have inspired during their stay on earth. Jesus created 11 masters from his 12 disciples. Lahiri Mahasaya created almost as many masters. One of them was Sri Yukteswarji, my own teacher. He had attained the state of Christhood. Special dispensation. Now we understand why Jesus said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus said this in order to declare his special divine dispensation on earth and not because he was narrow-minded or partial to the Israelites. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread, and to cast it to dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith, be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Matthew 15:25-28. Let the divinely ordained children, the Israelites, be first spiritually served by me. According to the will of God, my first help during the short period I stay on earth is for them only, and it is not proper for me to give the bread of divine consciousness which is now to be given to the divine children of Israel to any of the more materially minded peoples. Short stay on earth. It must be remembered that Jesus realized the short period of his stay on earth and that he could not possibly give his divine consciousness to the whole world, which was too unready. He wanted to give his time only to those who were spiritually ready and had good karmas and had thus attracted the attention of God. Jesus was only trying to carry out the divine wishes in his life. But even though Jesus knew that he came principally for the Israelites, he did not refuse to heal the daughter of the foreign woman, who was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, St. Mark tells us, 7:26. To her he said, O woman, the pulling power of thy will and conviction is great enough to draw the all-healing cosmic energy from me, so let thy will be fulfilled. Go your way, you will find the cosmic energy, roused by your faith and my will, has dislodged the evil spirit from the life of your daughter. The reality of Satan. obsession of human beings by evil spirits and healing of such cases are not a primitive superstition. We clearly see this in many of Jesus' healings, as in the case of his woman of Canaan and her daughter, who was grievously vexed with a devil, and whom Jesus healed through the mother's great faith in him. Jesus, with his perfect integrity and divine knowledge, would not have referred to such cases as obsession by evil spirits if they had only been cases of hysteria or lunacy. He distinctly called forth the obsessing spirit on many occasions, and the victim was then made whole. The cosmic evil force employs thousands of evil disembodied souls to work mischief in the world. As all good is organized by God and his angels, and as God sends his spiritually advanced children on earth from time to eradicate evil, similarly, the mighty evil force, Satan, with a vast horde of evil spirits, is carrying on a campaign of organized wickedness throughout the universe. Millions of bacteria and all kinds of evil diseases, evil thoughts, evil passions, are all implanted by the evil force into the mind and body of man. Man is essentially made in the image of God. But Satan planted in man greed, selfishness, anger and all evil tendencies which have overclouded the purity of human souls. It has been elsewhere described how tramp souls possess weak-minded people and torture their brain, causing mental derangements. Cases of such obsession are not wanting in the world. Sex maniacs, possessed by an evil spirit, take joy in attacking and killing women. In the notorious case of Hickman, who deliberately dismembered a little girl after spending days with her, we realize that he could not do such a heinous act unless he had been possessed by the devil. Normally Hickman was a devout church student and had a good reputation. When he was captured he said that even though he had led a clean life outwardly, he used inwardly to feel possessed of an irresistible impulse to kill innocent girls. He said that he had to kill this girl and had planned to do so for days, that he could never rest until that obsession of killing was satisfied. The case was distinctly one obsession. An unseen murderous soul entered the body of Hickman, due to the attraction of his past evil karma secretly lodged in his brain as a predominant tendency, hidden behind many other superficial good tendencies. Satan tempts masters. Great masters, when they approach final liberation, can distinctly see Satan and his legions of evil spirits take form to offer a final resistance against the master's entry into heaven. When Jesus approached complete liberation, he was confronted with Satan, who took him to a mountain top, giving him a glimpse of the vast earthly kingdom he could receive if he forsook the state of God consciousness. Buddha was confronted by Maraks who appeared to him in the shape of dancing girls, trying to tempt him to give up his divine bliss for sexual pleasure. When Buddha remained unaffected, final liberation came to him. Satan tries different masters with difficult temptations. Great devotees of God, as they approach toward him, are mysteriously tried by various temptations which come into their lives. But when devotees are very near God, Satan then forsakes his hiding place and openly appears to defy them. Is Satan symbolical? There was a time when I used to believe Satan was a symbolical force, a metaphysical delusion, but now I know and add my testimony to the testimony of Jesus Christ that Satan is responsible for all the creation of evil on earth and in the minds of men. I have consciously seen Satan many times obstructing me by mysterious misfortunes, and by consciously taken materialized forms while I was receiving the grace of God. God is alluring his devotees by all good things to come unto him, and Satan by the pseudo-allurement of promises of happiness is trying to draw people to his pit of ignorance and misery. Man is free to choose God-made good things or Satan-made evil. Every time a man acts for good he goes toward God. Every time he yields to the Satan-established habits of greed, anger, and other evils within him, he goes toward Satan. Hence man should consider all the whisperings of his conscience and good tendencies as the call of God within him. All human beings must consider the prompting of all evil thoughts as the call of Satan and avoid them. Voice of conscience. If man continuously listens to the whisperings of conscience within him and gets used to better ways of living, he ultimately discovers the eternal good within him and that he is made in the image of God, thus becoming liberated. Satan breaks his promises to give lasting happiness through evil to his followers. Ultimately all Satan's followers will turn away from him to God. Every master, when liberated, feels the obsession of ignorance within him gone. With the disappearance of the obsession of ignorance from an advanced devotee, great changes occur within him. All devotees under the influence of cosmic delusion behold matter as matter, and see dualities of good and evil and the relativity of consciousness which reveals matter as different forms of solids, liquids, gaseous and astral substances. But when the influence of Satan is completely terminated in the soul, the liberated devotee finds only the presence of ever-existing, ever-conscious, omnipresent, ever-new, blessed spirit present in all space. All evil, all discrepancies of nature disappear as forgotten shadows from the consciousness of the illumined devotee. And again, departing from the coasts of Tyre and Sidon, he came unto the Sea of Galilee, through the midst of the coast of Decapolis. And they bring unto him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech, and they beseech him to put his hand upon him. And he took him aside from the multitude, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit, and touched his tongue, and looking up to heaven, he sighed, and saith unto him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And straightway his ears were opened and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain. Mark 7:31-35. By my sigh I absorb thy evil karma and its resultant sorrow and your sickness within me. I have commanded the all-healing heavenly energy to fall upon thee and thy brain and send the healing vibrations to loosen up the defective auditory and speech nerves. Be healed. And he went out from thence, and came into his own country, and his disciples follow him. And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, From whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, and Joses, and of Judah, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended at him. But Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And he could do not mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk, and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. Mark 6:1-6. A street lamp sheds light everywhere except directly under it where there is some shadow. Similarly, a prophet illumined with God sheds light unto all and is widely appreciated except, often, by those of his own family or those belonging to his own country who live near him in a family or racial and not a devotional relationship. The family members and neighbors of a prophet, due to their emphasis on human relations, do not realize the greatness in him. Familiarity is a danger. A judge may be feared or admired in the courtroom but may be only a husband to his wife and subject to admonishment by her. It is a natural psychological fact that familiarity breeds contempt. People who live near a great man often do not realize his greatness because of their lack of attention on him. But the people who live far from a prophet and have no familiarity consciousness when they hear of his greatness, come with attention and devotion, not to get used to him, but to appreciate the divine greatness within him. That is why it is natural for devotees to understand the greatness of their master. With the telescope vision of devotion, the devotees can visualize the vastness of the consciousness of a master, whereas the family members with their vision clouded by familiarity do not measure the greatness of a master's soul. Unrecognized beauty. It is the same thing with most people who live around the Himalayas. They never recognize its beauty, grandeur, vastness and its lofty peaks because their attention is on their home life and not on the Himalayas. They have lived near the mountains so long that they are used to them. But visitors who come from distant lands with an eager attitude of mind appreciate all the greatness and vastness of the Himalaya mountains. Similarly, the family members of a prophet, being used to his bodily presence, do not use their attention to see his greatness hidden behind his body. But devotees who come to the prophet with devotion realize his spiritual greatness. Because of the unbelief of the people of his own country, Jesus did not demonstrate many miracles there, except that he used the positive-negative poles of his hands to utilize the cosmic energy and heal those who had faith in God's power in him. And he sent away the multitude, and took ship, and came into the coast of Magdala. The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he would show them a sign from heaven. He answered and said unto them, When it is evening, ye say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites! Ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. And he left them, and departed. Matthew 15:39, and 16-14. Jesus' divine signs. O you hypocrites who can read the evil weather or the good weather on the face of the sky, why can you not read in my life the signs of the times, that is, the divine message of the present age? As ignorant people cannot read the weather in the face of the sky, so this wicked generation has lost its spiritual vision and cannot recognize the divine sign and message in my life, evidenced in the miraculous healings of God performed through me. Jonah came back alive after living 3 days in the whale's belly in a suspended state of animation, thus proving the immortality of life and body when they are charged with God consciousness. A similar sign or divine miracle shall be performed by God in connection with my life, when my crucified body will remain buried 3 days beneath the tomb and after that will be resurrected into immortality. Prophecy about resurrection. Thus Jesus signified that the miracles worked in his life by God were sufficient sign and testimony of his approval of Jesus. He also prophesied, by his reference to Jonah, about his own coming trial and resurrection after death, which would prove his immortality and divine heritage for all time and all peoples. Jesus, being human as well as divine, felt deep sorrow, picturing in his divine vision the misery which his wicked contemporaries would have to go through because of their bad karmas and refusal to be divinely cleansed by him. And when his disciples were come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Jesus said unto them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. Which when Jesus perceived, he said unto them, O ye of little faith, why reason ye among yourselves, because ye have no bread? Do ye not yet understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000, and how many baskets ye took up? Neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many baskets ye took up? How is it that ye do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that ye should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Matthew 16:5-12. No material worries. O beloved disciples, why do you, by confusion and restlessness, make your faith or self-realization-born meditation so little that you fail to understand what I say through your all-seeing intuition, but use the power of reason and become confused. Why do you not feel in your intuition what I say and try to understand that in your reason? Having spiritual eyes of wisdom and intuition, you do not use them to see the truth in my sayings. Having the ears of spiritual receptivity, you do not use them to understand the meaning behind my words. Do you not remember how the divine in me fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves, and how there were many baskets of breadcrumbs left over? O beloved disciples, why have you so little divine conviction that you worry about material bread when you have already witnessed how, through God, I fed multitudes with a few loaves? Why should your minds be thinking of bread and thus fail to understand what I mean about the leaven or poisonous doctrines of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Do you not understand that when you can have all the bread you need from me, why should I be warning you about the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Beware of their false doctrines that are not the bread of life which you find in my teachings, but poisonous bread which, when taken by anyone, would sicken his spiritual life with ignorance. Law of divine healing as practiced by Jesus. His test of the disciples' faith. Peter's inspired reply. And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town, and when he spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up, and said, I see men as trees, walking. After that he put his hands again upon his eyes, and made him look up, and he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, Neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. Mark 8:22-26. Jesus would not heal the man in the town of Bethsaida, nor permit the man to testify to the healing in the town, because Bethsaida had rejected Jesus, and he had said of it, Matthew 11:21. Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works, which were done in you, had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the day of judgment, than for you. Jesus knew that every particle in his body, including his sputum, was charged with the high voltage of all healing cosmic energy. He took it and smeared it on the eyes of the blind man and electrified them with the positive-negative current flowing from his hands. Then Jesus asked if he saw clearly. The blind man replied, I see men as walking trees. Then Jesus gave a second healing to the eyes of the blind man by charging them with all healing cosmic current and asked him to look up at the point between the two eyebrows where the spiritual eye is located. When the blind man lifted his eyes there he made a contact with cosmic energy and his eyes were healed completely so that he could see every man plainly. And Jesus went out, and his disciples, into towns of Caesarea Philippi. Mark 8:27. In order to reach the final state of emancipation, Jesus was praying and communing with God within the solitude of his soul, in the company of his disciples. It must be understood that if Jesus had reached the state of final emancipation, he, being one with God, would not have had to pray or commune with him. The Hindu scriptures say, the flower precedes the fruit. When the fruit appears, the flower withers away. Thus, the flowers of meditation and prayer should blossom in the garden of the devotee's consciousness, but when the fruit of self-realization comes, his flowers of divine meditation and prayer wither away. The devotee who has already found self-realization and has arrived at the very last state of cosmic consciousness does not have to meditate. Jesus did not reach the final state of emancipation until after his resurrection. Mind completely engrossed. The prophet Krishna asked one of his disciples why he did not meditate, saying unless he meditated he would not find God. But the devotee, who realized Krishna was the manifestation of God, replied, "O Krishna, my mind is day and night so engrossed in you that I cannot take it away from you to mediate on any other spirit other than yourself, who is the highest manifestation of the Spirit himself." To this Krishna said nothing and laughed, for he realized that his devotee and himself had reached the final union in spirit. Of course, those devotees that have not reached the final union must not imagine that they are one with God and thus give up meditating and laboring for the plenteous harvest of God consciousness. When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I the Son of Man am?" And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some, Elias, and others, Jeremias, or one of the prophets." He saith unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. Matthew 16:13-20. The knowledge of the law of reincarnation possessed by Jesus and his contemporaries, which is implied by Jesus' question and his disciples' reply, will be dealt with elsewhere in this series of Bible interpretations. Blessed Revelations. Jesus said, "I care not what people in general think of me, but tell me what you realize." Peter answered, "In thee is the manifestation of Christ consciousness, which is the only begotten Son or only reflection in all vibratory creation of God the Father who is beyond creation." Jesus answered, "Blessed art thou by your own good karma and the blessing of the Father, that through your intuition he has revealed unto you the truth about me. Anyone identified with flesh and blood cannot perceive the Christ consciousness within me. It is the Father omnipresent in his heavenly cosmic consciousness who through your exalted consciousness has revealed to you the nature of Christ consciousness which is within me. And I say unto thee, O Peter, thou hast realized that thou art, and thus your consciousness is one with cosmic consciousness." Swami Shankara and the Vedas use the words tat twamasi, that thou art one with the cosmic Father, O Peter, on the solid rock of your wisdom which is founded on cosmic consciousness. I will build my temple of wisdom, church of God consciousness, where seeking souls will find God after they reach the altar of meditation within it. And the decorated gates of misery-making, hellish sense pleasures will not be able to lure those seeking souls who once have felt the joy of entering the church of Christ consciousness built upon the rock of my teachings through you. Through the perception of Christ consciousness within you, you will ultimately find the keys of the knowledge to enter that heavenly region where the King of cosmic consciousness or God the Father reigns. Through your exalted consciousness, after feeling the Christ consciousness in all creation, you will know the technique by which to feel the cosmic consciousness beyond all creation. And I shall leave these keys, techniques of God contact, with you, so that anybody who can enter the church of your consciousness, that is in tune with you, will also get the keys, when he is ready to and deserving of entering the kingdom of cosmic consciousness. Laws of freedom. Whatever laws of superconscious living thou shalt give to discipline earthly souls will have the sanction of the cosmic consciousness or the heavenly that thou art consciousness which you have realized within yourself. And whatever laws of superconscious freedom which you will instill in earthbound souls or material souls will also be the ones that govern the emancipated souls who possess cosmic consciousness. In the above, the words flesh and blood signify body consciousness, which is detrimental to the realization of God consciousness. A person who is only conscious of the body and not the spirit within it cannot realize the Christ consciousness hidden behind it. Jesus explains that it was not the body consciousness of Peter, but the Christ consciousness in him, revealed through cosmic consciousness, that made it possible for Peter to know the manifestation of Christ consciousness in Jesus. He further says Peter had attained the that thou art consciousness or cosmic consciousness, and, on the rock of that wisdom, Jesus was going to build a church of his inner teachings. Gates of hell. Gates of hell signifies sense pleasures as compared to the pleasures of divine consciousness which one feels on entering the church of meditation. The words I will give unto thee refer to the revelations of Christ consciousness. The word keys refer to spiritual techniques. The words kingdom of heaven signify cosmic consciousness where God the Father reigns as the only King. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples, how that he must go unto Jerusalem, and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised again the third day. Then Peter took him, and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. But he turned, and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan, thou art an offence unto me, for thou savourest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Matthew 16:21-23. O satanic delusion, speaking through the mistaken sympathy of Peter, drop away from my consciousness and remain forsaken behind as I am marching toward the kingdom of cosmic consciousness. As I am filled with enthusiasm and thrilled with joy at the prospect of enduring temporary bodily pain on the cross in exchange for everlasting joy in spirit, I am offended, O satanic delusion, at thy words of sympathy which thou hast spoken through Peter. For thy words, O Satan, even though they are garbed with Peter's voice and sympathy, clearly reveal the consciousness of delusion-possessed worldly men and do not vibrate with the wisdom of cosmic consciousness. Delusive sympathy. In the above words, Jesus emphasized that if he yielded to Peter's sympathy he would actually be embracing delusion, and thus giving up his preparedness to perform the difficult divine duty which had been revealed to his vision. That is why Jesus rejected Peter's sympathy. Although Peter wanted to banish the thought of any ordeal coming to Jesus, still, in the echo of those words was the temptation of Satan, who wanted Jesus to forsake his crucifixion and thus fail to fulfill the plan of God. Did Jesus believe in rebirth? His teaching on reincarnation. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world, and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Matthew 16:24-26. Let any devotee who wants to attain me or my Christ consciousness rise by meditation above the consciousness of his physical self, and let him keep his attention constantly focused in his Christ peace, even though he is daily crucified by restlessness and other trials and distractions. For whosoever will keep his life identified with the body and foolishly protect his body from the trials and restlessness felt in the struggle to meditate shall find that ultimately he will lose all the temporary joys of mundane life, but the devotee who is prepared to give up the pleasures of his physical life for the superior ever-new bliss of Christ consciousness felt in deep meditation will certainly find his life saved or endowed with eternal happiness of spirit. preaches by his life. Any devotee who lives the Christ life and preaches about it through the vibrations of his divine perceptions and not through book reading, and who forgoes all physical pleasures of life or the body itself, will attain immortality. If a man gains the whole world, it is of little profit to him, for he cannot use all the comforts of the world in one life, and he has to lose the kingdom of the earth at death. Thus it is foolishness for a man to strive to gain the temporary joys of mundane life. A man who lives identified with material riches finds at the end of his life that he is without riches as well as without God consciousness. A man, by the intoxication of his unspiritual life, loses the soul in the mires of ignorance. No earthly pleasures, however great, are good enough to buy back the lost immortal happiness of soul consciousness or superconsciousness felt in meditation. Therefore, no one should give up the joys of superconsciousness felt in meditation in preference to the joys of sense pleasures. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here, which shall not taste of death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his when, to the Son of Man, or in the body, the cosmic consciousness of the Father and the glory of its angelic joys and wisdom are revealed. Then the devotee knows that everyone is rewarded according to his labors of meditation in reaping the plenteous harvest of God consciousness. Every devotee according to the depth of his meditation finds the angels of different states of self-realization revealed in his human consciousness, Son of Man, through the ecstatic communion of cosmic consciousness. Devotees see angels. Every devotee according to the law of cause and effect or the law of karma which governs his various degrees of meditation and all his actions finds himself farther or nearer to God. Advanced devotees through the light of cosmic consciousness perceive disembodied advanced souls in the shape of luminous angels. Any devotee who is ashamed to express the joys of Christ consciousness and the words of wisdom springing from it to the body identified, divine bliss deserting souls, will find a deterioration of his state of Christ consciousness which he had contacted within his body due to the ecstatic revelations of cosmic consciousness and of the sacred angels of inspirations springing from it. Any devotee who forgets to be courageous and unselfish and does not try to share his ecstatic joys with body-identified souls will find his consciousness becoming limited within the confinement of his own ego. He who tries to transmit his ecstasy to other souls will find himself expanding. A soul who feels his joy in other souls gradually feels himself as the self of all and ultimately becomes identified with the omnipresent consciousness of God the Father. All devotees who contact Christ consciousness in earth life but for fear of persecution or ridicule do not try to transmit their consciousness to their ignorant brothers will find, after death, a deterioration of their Christ consciousness. Such selfish souls visiting Christ consciousness in the after-death state are again sent back to earth to learn to share their spiritual attainments with body-identified souls who are the sleeping children of God. Shall not taste death. Verily I truthfully reveal unto you there are some devotees who are standing around me who shall first feel the all-powerful cosmic consciousness within their human consciousness before they make a transition from their present bodily existence to another plane. Law of materialization. And after 6 days Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And, behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Then answered Peter, and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. It is extremely important to know the way by which Jesus transfigured himself, and how Elias and Moses materialized themselves and came to Jesus. When a person is intently watching a picture being played in a motion picture house, he might be so engrossed as to think all the actors and players in the picture to be real. When he arouses himself and watches the pictures closely, he realizes they are caused by a ray of electrical light falling on the screen. Thus he beholds their true electrical nature and their unlikeness to real earthly forms and figures. Likewise, most human beings are so busy watching the earthly motion picture playing on the screen of their consciousness and space, that they overlook their real nature. A master, one who has tuned his consciousness with God, realizes that the earth, with all its solids, liquids, gaseous substances, human beings, sky and stars, is nothing but the different forms of vibrations of electroprotonic rays playing on the screen of space.